تیری دعاؤں سے ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا کی دعا جنت کی ہوا یہ کامیابیاں شہرت قدم قدم پہ ملی یہ کامیابیاں شہرت قدم قدم پہ ملی نصیب ایسا ملا ماں تیری دعا سے تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے طواف میں نے کیا کی سعی مرواہی طواف میں نے کیا کی سعی مرواہی جو میں نے میرا کیا ماں تیری دعا سے تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر مجھے گرانے پہ حاسد تلے ہوئے تھے مگر میں دشمنوں سے بچا ماں تیری دعا سے تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے قسم ہے اس میں اجاگر کا کچھ جمال نہیں قسم ہے اس میں اجاگر کا کچھ جمال نہیں عروج اس کو ملا ماں تیری دعا سے تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے ماں تیری دعا سے ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا ماں کی دعا جنت کی ہوا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marsburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum. My name is Yunus Sacoor and I will be in your company for the next 2 hours. I'll be interviewing our guests shortly. Today, the date is the 28th of May 2025 and the commencement of the Mubarak month of Zulhajj 1446 AH. On tonight's show, we have some very topical subjects. Firstly, we are aware that there's been tariff adjustments in the municipalities throughout the country, and in particular in Durban and Pietermaritzburg, there have been quite significant tariff adjustments, particularly the eThekwini municipality, in which municipality many of us reside. It's becoming unaffordable given the state of the economy, but however, it's imposed on the ratepayers and the consumers. And we'll take a chat on sort of the tariff increases and whether it's affordable. Secondly, we will chat about the eThekwini's municipal budget. Will this improve service delivery? Because there's large amounts of money that is made available, going into billions of rands, and we'll unpack that later on in the program. We're also going to chat about the impact of the 4% increase in the fuel levy in last week's Budget 3.0 chat. And, is that another form of VAT disguised in another way? Later on in the program, we'll chat with Member of Parliament, Mr. Imran Subrati. He's from the National Legislature. And we know that the president had visited USA last week with Donald Trump, and lots of issues were discussed, particularly where there were allegations of the white farmers' genocide, which was exaggerated, to which our president responded, and also the issue of Starlink coming into South Africa and the reaction thereof. But before we continue with our discussion, as I mentioned, the moon has been sighted, and the new moon for the month of Zulhajj was sighted in South Africa, and the first of Zulhajj 1446 takes place today, Wednesday, the 28th of May 2025. Eid al-Adha in South Africa will be on the Saturday, the 7th of June 2025. We know that the month of Muharram is one of the most auspicious months in our Islamic calendar. And there are certain amals that we need to make in the first 10 days of Zulhajj. We know one of the farais, or one of the 5 pillars of Islam is Hajj for those that can afford it. So we should be, planning certain amals during this month. Firstly, we must make sure that the intention we make for our deeds are sincere for the pleasure of Allah during these days. Then we should make a lot of repentance. There should be a table of all sins that you want to pledge to Allah. You will stop doing them. We should also make our 5-time prayers or 5-time daily salah with Jamaat, the women folk at home. And we should also, the best of deeds is prayer during the earliest time, that is Fajr. Then basically we should read 2 rakats, various salahs that you can read for the day, Salatul Hajat, Istighfar, Awabin, etc. A lot of that. In the evening, make prayers, make tahajjud after witr, make du'as. And it is, sunnah to fast in the first 9 days of Zulhajj, as Prophet ﷺ used to do, especially in the day of Arafah. Fasting the day of Arafah anticipates that Allah will expiate the sins of the past. Make a lot of tilawatul Quran, zikrullah, and our askar, and give a lot of charity in this Mubarak month of Ramadan. Maintain the ties of kinship, and certain sort of weaknesses that we have, we should refrain from those weaknesses. I have some guests in the studio. With me, I have Ish Pralad. He is the president of the eThekwini Ratepayers and Residents Association, and he will give us the ratepayers feedback on these tariff adjustments and other concerns that they have. Ish, good evening and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Good evening to all our listeners as well, and good evening to you.
Okay, I also have with me Councillor Imtiaz Sayed, who is the founder of eThekwini Sacoor, and he's also a civic activist involved with various ratepayer associations, also with the CPFs. Imtiaz has been a couple of times with us in the studio, but we'll get Imtiaz to give some comment on the eThekwini municipal budget. Will this improve service delivery? Imtiaz, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Thank you for having me, and Assalamu alaikum to all the listeners.
Shukran. Later on in the program, we'll have Samuel Kennedy joining us together our economist, Hassan Motala, and we'll chat with Imran Subrati after the first news break. But before we commence our discussion, I'd like to play a nasheed in praise of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam.
Ya Rasool Allah, Ya Habib Allah, Aka, 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 Aka. پھر کے گلی گلی تباہ ہو کر سب کی کھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں رخصت قافلہ کشان غش سے ہمیں اٹھائے کیوں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں سوتے ہیں ان کے سائے میں کوئی ہمیں جگائے کیوں پھر کے دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم یاد حضور کی قسم غفلت عیش ہے ستم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم خوب ہے قید غم میں غم کوئی ہمیں چھڑائے کیوں یا رسول اللہ یا رسول اللہ یا رسول اللہ وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو وہ جو نہ تھے تو کچھ نہ تھا وہ جو نہ ہو تو کچھ نہ ہو جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے وہ جہان کی جان ہے تو جہان ہے آقا 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 کی کھائے کیوں دل کو جو عقل دے خدا تیری گلی سے جائے کیوں ہاں جان گئے اس کے موت मुस्तफा रोज फजू करे खुदा जाने है इश्क मुस्तफा रोज फजू करे खुदा जिसको उधर दिखा मजा जिसको उधर दिखा मजा सांसे
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM, and audio streaming on www.alansar.org.za. The revised eThekwini tariffs, not good enough. A local ratepayers group says eThekwini's decision to revise tariff hikes isn't good enough. Water tariff increases for households have been lowered from 15 to 13%, but 13% is still extremely high given the state of the economy and the high degree of unemployment. Businesses will see a drop from 16 to 14%, still a considerable hike in water. And we know that we've been experiencing a lot of water outages and other problems associated with water, the infrastructure, etc. We'll chat about that later. There have been no changes, though, to the proposed increases for electricity, which remains as 12.72%. Again, there's been a lot of outages, etc. Hikes for property rates have been adjusted from 6.5% to 5.9%, while refuse collection services have been reduced from 10 to 9%, but still significantly high. Ish Pralad, who is with the eThekwini Ratepay and Residents Association, says the revised hikes don't go far enough to ease the financial pressure on residents and businesses. It's going to cripple the economy. A lot of businesses won't be able to afford keeping their businesses open. So if the municipality doesn't rethink this issue, there are going to be serious repercussions on the ratepayer, the residents, and the community, really. So I'd like to bring in Ish. Ish, you mentioned that you listened to the road shows that the mayor had conducted, and objections were raised to these tariff adjustments, and it's been done year in, year out with little or no joy.
Correct.
Because the mayor has responded that there has to be increases because ESCOM has adjusted their tariffs. The water department has also adjusted their tariffs.
Yeah.
And this is impacting on the municipality. But you mentioned that, it's going to have a serious repercussion. Perhaps you want to give us just a feedback on what the community feels about these increases.
Yeah, well, I've been speaking to the community. I've been speaking to every part of our community, and could be black, white, Indian, colors, etc. They all are feeling this pinch. It's actually going to cripple them, because we never expected a double-digit increase. We expected something like maybe 5-6%, a single-digit increase, which can stabilize the economy and get people working. You must remember something: businesses rely on electricity, and businesses rely on water. This amount of increase is going to cripple them, because they won't be able to actually produce with this type of increase. And what actually amazes me is that the municipality has not put their house in order. And when they put this budget in, you must remember something, that the billing system is in shambles. How can you have an accurate billing system and put into a budget that people owe you money when you give a doctor a 2.8 million bill, you give a pensioner a 2.2 million rand bill, you give residents 110,000 rand bill? Many residents have got this kind of bills. So how is this gonna really? Your house is not in order. You have put out a budget now which you're gonna approve through what? Really, if you look at it, that means there are false figures in those budgets. Because if you're claiming 2.8 million from a doctor who actually pays 8,500 rand a month, so your budget is already off. So your collection rate is totally wrong. And really, this if you cannot get your house in order, you cannot approve that budget. You get to have your house in order first, and must remember something: the people are suffering. There is no work. We got 39% unemployment rate. Now you're bringing this in, it's going to rise even more, and it's going to cause more hunger. It's going to cause more deaths. To cause more suicides, and people who cannot handle their lives are going to commit suicide. So this is bad, and this is very, very bad.
Imtiaz, I want to bring you in. Last week we were chatting about terror at the write-off, and we had councillors and some representatives from civil society present, and it was mentioned that the 50% write-off as of 31st January 2025 areas would be a sort of a kind of a relief if people pay or agree to pay the balance immediately over a period of time. And, more than R1 billion or so would be wiped off if people start taking advantage of the write-off. Now, the write-off was as a result of poor debt collection. So the municipalities want to retrieve a lot of their funds. Now, the budget is going to be discussed tomorrow, and we'll chat on that a little bit later. But just to pick up on what Ish has been stating, that people are in dire straits, they are in arrears. There's a relief that's been put to the people. And again, now the tariff increases and people are going to go back into arrears. So tomorrow the budget is going to be approved with these increases. What is the reaction of council on this issue?
With all due respect to us, we can sit and we can look at pages of paper, and we'll never ever speak to the reality of exactly what's happening. And we must be honest with ourselves. So this whole debt relief program of 50% is there for two reasons. One is that water losses historically have not been dealt with according to the SLA of water. The SLA of water speaks to that when your water bill increases, within a period of a month, the municipality is supposed to be sending you a red notice to say, have a look, there's something wrong with your water, your consumption is too high. You're then supposed to have a look and fix it if you need to, and then you've got water loss insurance, which only covers you for a period of 3 months, right? On the second month, they're supposed to send out an internal inspector to come inspect why is this happening. And if they found a leak on a vacant property or something, shut off your water and inform you that that's happening. Now, if we can't even read the meters timeously, where would we get an inspector to come out? So what happens is that when you've got a water leak, that leak is there for probably about 10 months. You don't even know that it's happening. And all of a sudden, for that period of 10 months, you've got a bill which normally is 900 Rand, sitting on 10,000 Rand a month, which accumulates to 100,000 Rand. And when you go and claim for water loss, rightfully so, the insurance only pays you for 3 months. Now, the balance of it, the municipality is saying, now come to us and we'll write that off. So understand that part. So the first thing anyone that had a water loss issue and couldn't resolve it in terms of the insurance is to go to the municipality water department and say, I've had water loss in 2021, 2022, whichever year, have that reversed first. Then go take advantage of the 50% write-off. Now, the problem we have with it is that the budget comes in on the 1st of July. And this is something we've discussed in council to say that there's too short a time frame to address all of these issues if someone has a municipal bill. Because the reason you have a municipal bill could be because of water loss. And now you want us to go to 50%. How do we go there? So there's issues around it. I don't think everyone is going to be able to succeed at getting it done. But ultimately, the process to get it done is a bit flawed. It's not direct. It's not saying go here and you can have this fixed. Water department is not standing off to fix your issue immediately. So it's going to take some time to get that resolved. The issue around Eskom having a price increase of 11% and we coming in at 1.2%, rightfully so, correct. Water department is saying that Mgeni Water is charging us 13% and now they've reduced it to say, okay, it's now going to be 13%. Correct, it's there. 11% on sanitation. We don't pay anything to anyone for sanitation, but we've got 11% increase. We've got a 9% for refuse. Now, what we must remember in all of this, Yunus, is how do we get to spend 64.2 billion of the 73 billion Rand in operating expenditure, which 75% of that 64 billion comes from the person with the consolidated bill. You pay for those services, and the city derives that money from you. So majority of this budget is not coming from National Treasury, from government, from anyone. It's coming from you and I. Now, if we're sitting with an employment, with human resources in our city of 24,000 people, and we're allocating budgets for increases, we're allocating budgets for increases in salary and bonus payments and all of these things, where was the consideration in that to say, we are not providing the basic service to our community? Why are we now having these increases come in? Cut the salaries of even the councillors. But if you look in the budget, there is now provision there for councillor increases, increases to staff, all of those different things. So we have a problem outside of looking at the figures on the budget. We got to fix governance. Governance is our main issue. I'll give you an example. We were sitting in trading services the other day, and they put in committee to say that we need to buy 150 vehicles, LDVs, for the water and sanitation unit at a cost of between 400 and 600,000 rand a vehicle. But on the top, in fine print, and this is what we don't do, we don't read the fine print. eThekwini Water has been hiring 150 vehicles at 8 million rand a month. 8 million rand a month. That's 53,000 rand rental per van per month. That's what we've been paying. The question we raise is, who informed that? Who was the recipient of that? And the answer to it, no, it's a national instruction. It comes from national. No. National is not subsidizing your 75%. It's coming out of operational expenditure. So we need to really look at the fine print within municipality and how we're running this municipality. And the major issue is, there might be political will to do it, but there's no political wisdom to do it. And that's the problem.
I think some very interesting observations which we'll pick up. We take a break, and inshallah after the break we'll pick up those observations.
This segment is brought to you by Kenfield Auto, your RMI approved service and repair specialist. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Kenfield Auto.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ربنا إنك من تدخل النار فقد أخزيته وما للظالمين من أنصار.
Car won't start?
Kenfield Auto.
Noisy brakes?
Kenfield Auto.
Due for a service?
Kenfield Auto. Kenfield Auto, the answer to all your car problems. Your service and repair specialist for your VW, Audi, Suzuki, Toyota, or just about any vehicle. Kenfield Auto, your RMI and insurance approved workshop to handle them all. 236 Brickfield Road, Overport. Call us on 031 207 2399. Kenfield Auto.
This
Eid al-Adha, remember the ultimate sacrifice and your duty to humanity. Join the Al-Ansar outreach in reaching over 70 villages in Malawi. For just 1,200 rand, your Qurbani is slaughtered, cleaned and distributed under the supervision of our respected Mufti. Make your Qurbani count. Call Al-Ansar outreach today, 031 208 1601.
This is a journey through sound. This is a journey through traffic.
There will be traffic from just past the NPC area going northbound towards Peering.
Everything you need to know on the go. News, views, and interviews. This is your breakfast rush. Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 a.m.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Al-Ansar.
जुर्म पे गए लजाए हम है तो रज़ा निरा सितम जुर्म पे गए लजाए हम कोई बचाए सौ से गम कोई बचाए सौ से गम साज़े तरब बचाए क्यों
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Masbek 105.6 FM. We have Brother Imran Subrati, Member of Parliament in the National Legislature, on the line. Imran, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to News in Focus live on Radio Al Ansar International.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Yunus, and to your listeners. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Imran, maybe let's start with a question on a topic that is close to all our hearts, Palestine. I see the Weekly Gazette has an article on the beer case being remanded as the court waits for an evaluation report. Maybe remind the listeners why Palestinian activists have taken an interest in this case, and why do you feel the delay in the reports is deliberate?
Well, as listeners might recall, last year in about June 2024, there was a huge uproar that was created by the killing of a young woman, a mother of two kids, that was killed in Glenwood by a guy called Grayson Beers. Now, her name was Halima Hussein. Now, when he was interviewed, he mentioned that the reason for him killing her was because of her support for Palestine. And ever since he made that statement, and this is a public statement in a video that's gone viral, Palestinian activists, especially organizations like United for Palestine, have become very closely attached to this case. And ever since then, we've been following this case to courts. We've been in all appearances. And so that's the context of the accused. So most recently, he was in court in mid of May for the court to receive a report from the Fort Napier, where he was for 1 month. And the idea behind the court was to be presented with an evaluation report whether he's fit to stand for trial. And unfortunately, Yunus, that report was not prepared. It was not yet ready by the psychiatrist to be presented. And hence the case was remanded until 13th of June to receive that report. Now, many are asking, Imran, why do you think that 30 days that was initially afforded, the report was not given on his mental state to stand for trial? Now, I have sought opinion from legal experts as well, and the feedback I've got is that because this case is such a high-profile case, it's a murder case, firstly. Secondly, it's a case that involves social justice because of the Palestinian solidarity, and it's such a publicized case. The view is that these professionals want to make extremely sure that they get the assessment right. They don't want to be prejudiced, both the accused as well as the deceased and the cause. They mustn't feel pressured by Palestinian activism either. So I think the process is fair, so that's logical. It's a highly publicized case. Therefore, we have agreed and we've stated in media that we support the process that's taken place. We don't believe it's been unduly delayed. So inshallah, it's remanded till 13th of June. I hope to be in Cape Town to be in court with the other activists to listen to the hearing. And we hope, inshallah, Yunus, he is found fit to stand for trial, because if you look at his lifestyle, he was a mechanic, he had his own workshop, he was a business person, he took part in various competitions, and he had a good social life. So that talks of a person who was very, very aware, was very able. So it would be an injustice, in my opinion, if he is found unfit for trial. So we're hoping, inshallah, the law will take its course and Beer will be found fit to stand for trial.
Yes, very interesting. We'll follow that case very closely. Just a comment, the meeting between President Cyril Ramaphosa and US President Donald Trump in the Oval Office last week has triggered much debate and many heated opinions. President Trump showed his typical disdain for the truth as he pushed his agenda while foregoing any attempt at meaningful discussion. With the meeting moving out of the public eye and into the private discussions over lunch, South Africans wondered what the diplomatic mission could achieve. We now seem to have some insight into this after Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Solly Malatsi recently gazetted proposals doing away with BE requirements in the telecom industry. This is clearly a byproduct of the drawn-out negotiations between Musk and the South African government to facilitate Musk launching Starlink, his low-orbit satellite internet network in South Africa. However, Minister Solly Malatsi has recently denied this. So, we saw in a video of you going viral in which you articulated the position of the ANC, your political party, on the Starlink regulations, as everyone is calling it. Maybe tell us, what is the Starlink regulations and what exactly did you express in Parliament, Imran?
Okay, I think it's a matter that has been highly publicized, and rightly so. So the Starlink regulations is actually a term that the public is calling for a regulations that the minister intends to publish, which he announced last week Friday, which is coincidental because that is at the back of the trip of the president to America, in which they engage with President Trump, etc. So the essence of the regulations that the minister has published is what he's seeking to do is to create an opportunity for foreign companies to invest in this country, particularly in the ICT sector and particularly in the telecommunications. And one of the requirements in terms of the Electronic Communication Act is that any foreign company that wants to invest in South Africa must enter into a 30% equity arrangement with historically disadvantaged groups. Now, the idea behind that is to obviously ensure that the ICT sector is not disempowered, in that ultimately our people don't lose control over a sector in which we are probably, which is the least transformed sector, and that is the ICT sector. So that is a 30%. There's anybody, whether it is Starlink. I mean, Starlink has 7,500 LEO satellites, which is low Earth orbit satellites. I mean, by contrast, for example, China has, I think, 13,000. Then there's Russian satellites. Then there's Turkish satellites. So for that matter, anybody who wants to invest in this country in telecommunications, the ECA Act says you must give 30% shares to local historically disadvantaged groups. Now, what Minister Malatsi has published regulations for comment, in which he wants to use another regulation of the BEE codes, which has another concept called equity equivalent investment programs, EEIPs, which essentially what it tries to do is work around the equity compulsion. And it says that if you can, to satisfy the BEE requirements, businesses wanting to invest in this country can, for example, invest in developing the communities, invest in infrastructure, invest in education, training, etc., of historically disadvantaged groups as a means of avoiding the 30%. Now, there have been other organizations that have done it. Microsoft have done it, and others have done it. But that is not governed by the ECA Act. The ECA Act is very clear that for telecommunications and mobile network operators, you must give a 30% equity. That's largely because ownership by historically disadvantaged groups must not be taken away from us South Africans. We must have a stake in this sector. So what the minister sought to do, he said, instead of giving 30%, let's introduce this alternative route, and what I call in Parliament the back door. And I've said in Parliament, the ANC's position is very clear. In fact, before I could make the statement, I waited till last night. The night before, it would have been Monday night, when the African National Congress National Working Committee met in Johannesburg, and we had a clear-cut directive that there was no deal cutting, no conversations took place between our leadership when they visited America, and that the laws of our land are sacrosanct, that anybody who wants to invest in this country must, in terms of the telecommunications, must satisfy the 30%. So in Parliament yesterday, in the Portfolio Committee, we really took Minister Salim Malatsi to task. We've said, and the ANC position is, we want his to be withdrawn because we believe it's really working around the law. The law is very clear. You give the 30%. If you want to change that 30% of the ECA Act, you have to follow the parliamentary process and come to Parliament. But you can't publish a set of regulations and try to circumvent it. So alhamdulillah, that's what it was all about.
Now, Imran, 30% equity arrangement, is in order if that's the regulations the government has stipulated. But many journalists have reported that no one will invest in a country where they can't hire the best talent for the job. For example, if the South African government is to change the fortunes of this country, it needs to reconsider broad-based black economic empowerment. People need to be hired based on merit and not color. And the notion of South Africa insisting on affirmative action is now basically becoming a problem because 30 years into democracy, people are saying that those that have the best talent are not hired for the job. So is there some reconsideration given through this factor that we want foreign investment into the country? We got the economy to start spiraling. That will respond to the 35% unemployment that's currently happening in South Africa. And to stimulate the economy and to deal with unemployment, will the government reconsider some of these policies to make sure that people with merit are appointed to do certain jobs and functions, even though we may have this 30% equity arrangement, but the right people must be appointed to do the job?
Yes, look, it's exactly for the same reason that this regulations in the BEE codes was promulgated, to allow those foreign companies that wish to invest in our countries an equity equivalent investment program. In other words, if you are unable to part with 30%, then this is what you should be doing. For example, Microsoft have done it very successfully. There's been various other entities that have done that very successfully. So that talks to the fact that government is acutely aware that or not all will be able to part with that 30%, and hence that opportunity is there of EIP is there. Now, but just to differentiate it from what has happened with the Starlink regulations, the Starlink regulations is very different in that they speak specifically to licensing those who will provide telecommunications. I mean, the likes of Vodacom, MTN, and all those who are mobile network operators, etc. The Electronic Communications Act is specific about them, not about others. Though Microsoft is also in the ICT sector, but it's not a mobile network operator. So now in terms of skills, it goes without saying, therefore, that the country must attract international and foreign skills to strengthen our skills in this country. In fact, one of the areas that I am challenged with, because I sit in the Portfolio Committee of Communications, is that we still have to import skills, specific skills, specialist skills in the ICT sector. And it's an area that we seized with. I often sit in the committees and I challenge the various entities that why are we not capacitating our people to be able to deal with this and provide these skills? Because we have this huge unemployment in our country. Why are we importing from other countries these specialized skills? So I think that talks to your question or response to your question that are we close to the idea? No, we're not close to the idea. We're open to the idea, hence we have to import. But I think, Yunus, we will be naive to ignore the fact that why do we have to import these skills? And we have been unable to cultivate that skills in our country alone. Yunus, that goes back to the years of a colonization education that our people were subjected to, where they were not subjected to STEM, science, technology, and mathematics subjects. They were not subjected to critical thinking. They were not subjected to innovation. Hence, whilst we seek and we support bringing in international skills, it's crucially important that we must develop the skills of South Africans so that we are able to match, and if not better, the skills that is being provided by the rest of the world. So I think I've responded to your question in twofold, to saying that yes, we are bringing in skills internationally, but the same breath, we have a responsibility to develop skills because we are still struggling with the fragments of an apartheid education in our country.
Imran, thanks very much. We've ran out of time, but Abdul, the chair of ORA, mentioned to me that you have a Newsroom Africa interview at 9:15 because you were the acting chair of the portfolio committee today. We wish you everything of the best on that interview, Imran.
Thanks,
and we thank you for
Thank you
joining
so
us at short notice, and we certainly will be in touch with you in not too the distant future. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Brother Imran Subrati, Member of Parliament, National Legislature. On that note, we will break for the news, and inshallah we'll continue our discussion after the news break.
An informative Islamic global perspective. This is Al-Ansar News.
News. These are the 20th of May. The news from Durban 90.4 FM, Pietermaritzburg 105.6 FM. President Ramaphosa defends recognition of King Mrs. Zwelithini. America Monina. President Cyril Ramaphosa's lawyers have argued that his recognition of King Mrs. Zwelithini as the Amazulu monarch was a ratification of the royal family's decision and not his alone. Ramaphosa is challenging an earlier higher court's decision which set aside the official recognition of King Mrs. Zulu as king of the Zulu nation. The High Court ruled in favor of Mrs. Zulu's older brother, Prince Zimagade, after he contended that the 2022 identification process by the president was flawed. Advocate Marumo Morena, representing the president, addressed the justices in the Supreme Court of Appeal today.
As far as concerns this appeal turns on three core issues. First being recognition of King Mrs. Zwelithini was lawfully and rationally. The second being whether the High Court its interpretation and application of Section 8, Section 4 of the Petitioner Reconciliation Act.
News. The Lambert District Municipality says no decision has been made as yet on whether to renew Caesar's water contract. The utility currently supplies areas including Belito, Shaka's Head, Shaka's Kraal, Tinley Manor, Shayamoya. Its current 30-year agreement is set to expire in April 2029. It was signed in 1999 by the former Dolphin Coast Municipality. Municipal Manager Sazim Bele told reporters earlier today that the focus now is on delivering water services to the entire district, which spans 4 local municipalities. More news. A search for a girl reportedly kidnapped in Eswatini is extended to KwaZulu-Natal. The Royal Eswatini police believe that the suspect who abducted 8-year-old Tifezile Gwebu brought her to the province. Tifezile was taken from the Suguduma area in neighboring country Eswatini a week ago. KwaZulu-Natal police spokesperson Robert Netruanda says they have been drafted in to help find the girl. Netruanda says anyone who has seen the child is urged to contact the Royal Eswatini police or contact any police station in South Africa. More news now. Road Accident Fund CEO Collins Letswalo has been placed on special leave amid corruption allegations. This was announced earlier today in Parliament. Deputy Minister of Transport Nkululeko Hlengwa says Collins Letswalo was informed by the board of the Road Accident Fund last night. Hlengwa says that the board held a council meeting and agreed to suspend Letswalo with full paying benefits. The CEO has been implicated in allegations of financial mismanagement and corruption. Finally, international story. The head of the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has condemned the new United States-backed aid model in Gaza, saying it is a distraction from atrocities taking place there a day after chaotic scenes at an aid distribution center in Gaza. Yesterday, thousands of Palestinians clambered over fences to reach the humanitarian supplies at a distribution site run by the previously unknown US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, known as the GHF, in Rafah. Gaza's Ministry of Health reported at least one person was killed and dozens others were injured as forces opened fire. Ajit Sange, head of the United Nations Human Rights Office in the occupied territory, told international media today that 47 Palestinians were wounded mainly by Israeli gunfire. The Israeli military said its forces had fired warning shots nearby. Your weather, it's 23 degrees. A quick reminder of our top story. President Ramaphosa's lawyers have argued that his recognition of King Mzizulu Kazwelitini as the Zulu Amazulu monarch was a ratification of royal family's decision and not his alone. That's the news.
Audio stream across the world on radioalansar.co.za.
Allah, 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 Allah.
तन्हा हूँ मैं और इम्तिहान लाखों तने हैं सामने बैठा हूँ मैं मायूस कुन आए ना कोई मुझे थामने अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير मायूब हूँ तेरा करम करता रखा इज्जत भी थी बढ़ के दिया औकात से दौलत भी ताकत भी और वक्त भी कर दे खता हर माफ तू फहरिस्त इसियां को छोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير रंगीनियों खुद गर्जियों में है गुजारी ये उम्र है आरज़ू बस कि यही कर दूं तेरे नाम शामो सहर तस्कीने दिल हासिल करूं रुख अपनी जानिब तू मोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير لب पे रहे जिक्र दुआ और तुझसे मैं डरता रहूं करके अमल कुरान पे जन्नत की राहों पे चलता रहूं खिदमत करूं इस्लाम की पछतावे का गम तोड़ दे अल्लाह अल्लाह तू मेरी सुन ले सदा حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير حسبنا ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير रोता रहा सजदों में जो दिल में लिए उम्मत का गम पढ़ता रहूं मैं तो फतन अपने नबी पे दूं
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to News in Focus live on Radio Al-Ansar International, broadcasting on the frequency Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Marsberg 105.6 FM, and streaming on www.alansar.org.za. Before the news break, we were chatting briefly about the tariff adjustments. Are they affordable given the state of economy? And Ish Pralad mentioned definitely not. Our councillor Imtiaz mentioned that this is becoming a huge problem in eThekwini and indeed in South Africa, where people are asked to keep on paying more for tariff and in turn not getting value for money. We now want to move into, before the break, we spoke to Imran Subrati, who gave us an update on the issue of Starlink and the trip of the South African president to America and some of the issues. But we want to chat about the municipal budget. Will this improve service delivery? The medium-term revenue and expenditure framework will be tabled for approval on Thursday, 29th May 2025. The MTREF comprises of a total budget of 71.3 billion rand for the upcoming fiscal year. This includes 64.2 billion operating budget and 7.1 billion in capital budget. eThekwini Mayor Councillor Cyril Kaba reaffirmed the city's focus on accelerating service, improving resilient infrastructure, and ensuring economic growth that leaves no one behind. The municipality has revised several proposed tariff increases following an extensive public participation process held on the 23rd of April to the 17th of May. For the 2025-26 MTREF, the municipality will allocate 588 million to build bulk infrastructure for various catalytic projects. The budget is expected to attract billions of rands of investment in development projects that will catapult the city into a new era. The mayor mentioned that when he assumed office, he indicated that his priorities will include, among others, provision of uninterrupted water supply, improving customer care, and building an economically sustainable city. He said that the budget emphasizes turnaround strategies for trading services to enhance efficiency and improve quality of life for the residents. He mentioned further that note has been made of the water-related issues that were raised during the budget. He says that his option is, or his main purpose is to provide a reliable and efficient water supply. The total operating budget for water is 11.3 billion, which includes 5.3 billion for bulk water purchases and 1.9 million for free basic water. Now, Imtiaz mentioned that there's a lot of monies being wasted in unaccounted water, not only underground leaks, but the utilization of water in the informal settlements and the free water supplied, to various other, communities. Now, I want to bring in Imtiaz into this discussion. The budget will be definitely passed by a majority tomorrow. So these tariff increases will go through. And the resulting effect is that people's bill come 1st July will have the higher tariffs. Now, a lot of individuals are battling to pay, and this write-off that's going to take place, it was intended to help people who sort of got into arrears Now, we understand that there's a 10% admin charge if you are in arrears, and it's incorporated into the budget as potential income to the municipality. Perhaps you want to comment, Imtiaz, briefly on that aspect.
I think we must be realistic about things again. You know, sometimes we speak on budgets, we speak on paper, and we speak about what it's telling you at face value. That's not the reality. The reality is a very, very simple thing, right? When you're reading the budget, read it for how is it going to impact you and how is it going to affect you. Now, if anyone, including ratepayer associations, have done their homework, they'd realize that households that pay rates in the city, now, if you don't pay rates, you obviously don't pay water and electricity, right? So I'm talking about it holistically and inclusively. There are only 472,000 households.
Right.
And we have 980,000 households that get services from the city. That means 500,000 households don't pay for anything. It's free. Okay? Now, the reason I told you the budget on operational expenditure is 64.2 billion is so that people can understand what I'm saying. 75% of that 64.2 billion comes from that 472,000 households only. But it provides a service to the 980,000 households. So when you're talking about operational expenditure of electricity unit and they tell you it's 1.6 billion a year, it's in fact divided by 2 for you. Because they're providing a service to 980,000 households.
So you're cross-subsidizing those?
You 100% cross-subsidizing. Now, when we're reading these figures and we say, oh, what a great thing, it dropped from 13% to 11%, 13% to 15%, all of that 2% and 1%. But yet you go in a line item and now you add in administrative charges for areas at 10% per annum. So you're getting that 1% back. And with all due respect, we all know Grey Street and Victoria Street and all of that back in the day. You walk in the shop, at face value, something's marked at 200, and inside the shop it's 180 rand. That's how the city is running. They started out quite clearly knowing that they're not going to get what they asked for. They knew they're going to go to public consultation and speak to ratepayers. Ratepayers are going to complain. They're going to console them and say, there's a lollipop for you. We're going to give you 1% reduction. Well done. That's what it is. It's nothing else.
Now, what you're alluding to, the fact that those that are paying, and they constitute a minority in the country, are cross-subsidizing those that can't afford to pay.
Yes, let me put it to you this way. If you take that 472,000 people out of the city and you move them into a town like Stanger and you tell them to live there, the city will collapse.
So
Because
your rate base will be bust, and basically
nothing. You'll have no money.
You'll have a major problem.
Correct.
Now, the city is aware that people are struggling to pay, and a lot of poor people living in these areas happen to buy a property, are paying rates.
Yes.
Because the rates rebate is a minimal amount.
There are a few items within the rates policy that speaks to those things. Like, for example, if you're a pensioner and your property is now 2.5 million, you can apply for a rates rebate, right? In terms of rates of a property...
But you won't get 100% rebate.
50%.
Yes.
Right? Sorry, if you're a pensioner, it's 75%, right? Then there are other certain things that are in the budget that are good. And it speaks to old SLAs that we've always had that have never been implemented. Like, for example, it used to state any household under 250,000, it's now 350,000 that can apply for or will automatically fall within the indigent policy. However, if you're from 350,000 to 750,000 rand and your total household income is under 7,000 rand a month, you can apply to have rates and water and all of that at 6 kiloliters free and all of those things. So there are some good items within the budget. But holistically, and in solidarity with those 472,000 people, we tomorrow are abstaining from the budget. Very simply because even if we do vote against it or vote for it, it makes no difference. We're in a government of national unity. Provincially, it's the IFP and the ANC that stand together. And if you look at the numbers within council out of 222, and if you take the ANC and just the IFP in a full house, along with the NFP and the other cohorts that they have, the numbers are enough to pass this budget anyway. The roadshow was there because it is an instruction. It must happen. They could have passed any budget. They could have passed an increase of 20%, and you would have had no say.
Correct.
That's the reality, because the political dynamic in cities like eThekwini is not in favor of any change. You cannot have this sort of governance and expect service delivery. It's not going to happen.
Now, we mentioned those numbers, Imtiaz, that the operating budget constitutes a significant amount, of the
64.2 billion.
That's right. Now, will that amount be spent on maintenance that is badly required in the city? We know road maintenance is a chaos. Infrastructure maintenance is chaotic. Forget about the capex. In the past, a lot of it was going towards corruption, maladministration, more than 40% or 50%. Will the mayor's commitment to really using the operating budget effectively take place? Yes or no?
Let me answer you very simply. Firstly, the mayor is the head of the city, doesn't run the city. The city is run by the same people that ran it in 2021 when we came in. In 2021, we came in, we discussed the whole night because we were the first year in council. We said, no, we're going to make a difference and we're going to do all of these things differently, not understanding what we understand today and how the city is run. Then it was 66 billion. Same officials, same people. Every year on year, there's these increases. Same officials, same people. The only difference now is you're telling me there's a new mayor. What brings change to the 24,000 employees that service the city? All the increases are within the budget. It's there. The increases haven't gone away, including councillors. Councillors are going to get an increase because it's in the budget. When have the councillors stood up and said, no, we're not going to get an increase this year because we're not providing service delivery? Those things are not happening. There's incentive bonuses there. It's in the budget also. Why are we getting all of these things when you come up Alpine Road right now? They've just tarred half the road. They've just opened up right there by Imam Bak's butchery again because of a water leak. Why couldn't that entire line be repaired and replaced before they retard the entire street? Besides that, you probably had 20 or 30 staff on Alpine Road for the past 2 months tarring half the road. What are we doing? Where is the value for money? Who's monitoring them? Where is our wastage? Our wastage is not in plundering and tender fraud and all of these things. Our wastage is in deployment of branches of people within municipalities. When there's 50 jobs within DSW, who's going to get that job? And now you are holden to the unions. You can't really speak to the staff improperly because they come from the branches that now put you into power. So this is a struggle of power. This is a struggle of making sure your staff are happy so that they don't turn on you in the streets. The ANC with the MK and all of that happening at the moment, there's no change coming. Realistically speaking, you're going to be forced to pay this money, even if it was 15%. Realistically speaking, this budget is going to pass. And realistically speaking, your service is going to be exactly the same for the next year.
So basically, this cross-subsidization principle will continue.
Correct.
I just want to comment on DSW and housing. The mayor is saying to ensure seamless provision of waste management services, the municipality has set aside an operating budget of 1.9 billion, which includes 454 million for community-based contractors. That was a disaster.
Yeah.
We know the former mayor, Zandile Gumer, that case is still going on regarding that issue. And then another 85 million for refuse bags. Most of the communities and ratepayers are saying we don't get these refuse bags. We have to buy these refuse bags. The capital budget for this service is 375 million, which will be spent on transport assets and landfill sites, which is a huge problem.
No, Yunus, let me.
Now, I just want to add to housing, and I was in that sector. Mayor Kaba said the city will also be attending to the housing backlog of over 474,000 households, which is growing due to rural-urban migration. When I was around, it was more than 1 million. I don't know how he brought it down to 474,000 because there's virtually no delivery since then. This also includes efforts to address approximately 600 informal settlements with 314,000 households. Virtually nothing has been done. Those informal settlements are the same.
Totally.
All that's happening is that some kind of water and electricity provision or theft of electricity that's taking place. So there are promises being made of the budget, summary being prepared by officials who don't know what they're doing, which is alluding to the fact that you're back to square one. So is this a talk shop or is it a reality?
Yes, let me give you something very simply. Our mayor on Monday's meeting was very proud to say that last year we provided as a city some 70,000 jobs. The year before. And currently we provide 102,000 jobs as a city. for what? Community-based projects, stream cleaning projects, all of these things that are for empowerment of the communities coming from the informal sector, which comes out of your operational expenditure. So basically right now, we give services for free, those 472,000 households, and we create jobs within those informal settlements for them to do street sweeping and cleaning and all of those things. It comes from you and I. And that is where this really is, right? Now, when we're speaking about capital expenditure, people need to understand, a capex is not sponsored by you who has the white paper, right? You sponsoring 75% of the operational budget. The capex comes from national treasury or provincial treasury, wherever it is, and it's given to the city to capitalize and do all of those infrastructure developments. The only unit that has got it right to a certain degree, and when we discuss this within our committee, we understand that electricity, all their money comes from you and I because they provide a service to you and I. Water, exactly the same, right? However, we don't further on charge to non-rate payers those bills. So water is given free, 42% of it given free. Electricity only now is putting in prepaid meters, but it's still, there's no measure, there's no bulk measure of it. The only unit that gets funding from National Treasury to provide its service is CSW, Cleansing and Solid Waste, because they fully understand that they have to provide a service for double the capacity of people that pay. So that's the only one that really gets a grant in terms of saying this is what it is. So I'll give you an understanding of that. In your bill, you're probably paying 270 Rand or 370 Rand a month for DSW charges. In reality, if the unit wasn't getting sponsored by national government, that bill should be 1,100 and something Rand. So that's where the grants come in. Now, if electricity had to apply their mind and do the same thing, which they're currently doing, they've presented to us some infrastructure things and all of that, but the discussion is a very simple thing. When you're giving water away for free, meter it, measure it, and bill it to human settlements, because it's not our cost. National Treasury has told you to give these services, they must pay for it. But because we don't measure it and we can't bill it, everyone else has to now pay for it. So those are the injustices that we need to speak to.
I want to bring you in, Hassan. You know, we talk about value for money, and you're hearing some comments on the municipal budget and whether we're getting value for money. And indications are clear that there's a cross-subsidization process. When you receive your monthly bill, which is quite high, in the upmarket areas, some guys get bills of 15,000, 18,000 Rand, depending where they're living. The consolidated bill, the rates, electricity, water, refuse charges, plus they pay. Everybody's paying 15%, and now the fuel levy is going to be adjusted, which we're going to chat later on about. But are we getting bang for our buck, Hassan? Or are we really being taken for a ride here?
No, we're not getting bang for our buck. Yunus, if you look at it, how many years in a row now have we had massive increases that they've been putting through? Have you seen any improvement in terms of the service delivery?
Not at all.
So if you look at it in most suburban areas in Durban or eThekwini, whether it's Overport, Musgrave, Morningside, you go back to other areas as well, Reservoir Hills, those places, high amount of rates is paying by all the households in these areas, and they continue to push through double-digit inflation. In the last 2 years has sat under 5%. In fact, currently we're sitting under 3%. Why do you push through anywhere between 11 and 15% increases for whether it's water tariffs, sanitation tariffs, or refuse tariffs? There's no need for it. Electricity, the argument is, okay, Eskom has pushed through and is pushing through double digit, and therefore they're following through on that. But across the other areas, there's massive double digit increases that have just continued, and they just keep to follow through. The issue, as highlighted by your guests earlier as well, is that there isn't an efficient system that is being run in terms of the management and whoever is contracted for services within the city. That's the big issue. We're not getting the right skills, the right people that are working there to give us our bang for buck. The second issue is this here. The eThekwini is in a financial, they're in financial difficulties. That's a fact. And the easy way out is to push through increases and get through from ratepayers as much revenue as they can. You're not seeing them cutting back massively in terms of on the expenditure in terms of non-effective expenditure, whether it's the wage bills and those areas. There's still, why should you still have what you call this, not overtime issue? Why should you have, overtime is another issue as well, and that's a big issue if you look at across the wage bills for majority of the services. But why should there be bonuses? For a municipality that has been completely below par in terms of service delivery, there should be absolutely no bonuses for anyone in eThekwini management. Why should they be paying that there? And the problem is there's allocation for that in the budgets. When you look at that, there's allocation for that. The other point to highlight is this here. And you are seeing that the ratepayers associations are pushing back and they're pulling through. You're seeing it happening in other big municipalities across the country. Cape Town, which is supposed to be one of the better run municipalities countrywide, they had 14,000 emails or submissions opposing their rate increases that had happened a month ago. 14,000 submissions. So the residents didn't take it lightly and they pushed through. The Cape Town DA man was forced to also pull back on their tariffs. They were pushing through higher tariffs in terms of also property related values, high fixed tariffs on water and the like. At the same time, they had to pull back, and because the impact was coming through particularly in the middle income group. And that's the same thing here in eThekwini. The people or the households that are being impacted substantially is your middle income households. And there are majority of the households that pay diligently across the suburbs and across the major suburbs that we were talking about, and they are being impacted substantially. You're not seeing their wages or their salary being increased by 10% plus per year. They're getting under 5% or sometimes in many cases not even getting any increases, but they're having to cope with these huge increases in terms of their rates and taxes. And that's the big issue. The issue is that the municipality, firstly, sort out their financial issues by making sure that they're cutting expenditure on areas which are not value adding. And they need to do it. But unfortunately, there's no political will to do that, so unlikely to happen. The second issue is that you're focusing, if you look at, we talked about now 70.9 billion budget, 60 odd billion is for operating and only 7 billion is for capex. Now, capex is so badly needed because of the aging and the poor infrastructure that we have around water and the roads and the like, and you're only allocating 10% of your total budget toward, and that too, if you look at the 10%, when I looked at the numbers, for example, water, they're talking about 1.2, just under 1.2 billion for towards go anywhere, drive anywhere, whether it's in Crescent Street or Hartley Road or Randalls or whatever. Every week or every second week, there's some water burst pipe or some issues, and we're not getting water for a day or two in many of these areas. And that's across many of the suburbs or municipalities within the eThekwini region. The problem is the aging infrastructure, and that's not being addressed. The second point is that those that are being contracted, now they're talking about, was it a week or 2 weeks ago, that they want to try and bring more internal plumbers and the like. The issue is, how do they have still the right skills to do that? So firstly, they were contracting to people that didn't have the right skills. So instead of somebody coming in once, sorting out the job and doing it properly, that same person is coming 2, 3, 4 times to sort out the same issue. They're billing it, so they get happy because they're getting regular income coming through every month, and they continue with that. And secondly, the water tanker distributors, and we talked about it last week about the water tanker mafia and the like. They're more than happy because they're continuing to supply the water tankers and getting, supplying water at an inflated rate to which we the consumers are effectively paying for. That's the issue, and it's wasteful expenditure. Lack of efficiency and necessary skills within the municipality and the contractors that they're utilizing. And unfortunately, that's unlikely to change. Look, I think there'll be small changes here and there, but unlikely to be significant changes. And as I think highlighted earlier, because of the, within the council and the like, this budget is probably going to be approved. But the unfortunate thing is that majority of the ratepayers, and that's at 400 or 1,000, are those that are going to be impacted substantially.
So in summary, the question is, will this improve service delivery? And the answer is no. It is a sort of theoretical exercise that's going through just to ensure that the coffers of the city takes care of the inflationary increases in costs, and it'll be business as usual, and all the problems will still perpetuate. We know 2026 elections around the corner. The city is attempting to improve its services, but as Imtiaz is pointing out, nothing near what is expected from the ratepayers and residents. And further, in other municipalities, the same problem exists. And we know in Msunduzi, in Pietermaritzburg, the city has been under administration for the last couple of years. Things have gone from bad to worse. And you drive into the roads in Pietermaritzburg, and those listeners that are listening in will tell you those main roads are in a shocking state. It's with Church Street, Loop Street, Boom Street, even the various townships, they're all battling out in Pietermaritzburg. And the same applies to Kwaduguza and the other municipalities. Gauteng and Johannesburg municipality is even worse. Now, I just want to touch briefly on this, the impact of that 4% increase in fuel levy. We touched on it last week, Hassan.
Sure.
The EFF slams the increase and warns of economic inequality. They have formally challenged the proposed 4% increase announced by Finance Minister in the Budget 3.0, raising constitution and legislative concern over its validity. Now, the proposed increase, the first since 2021-22 fiscal year, would raise fuel levy by 16 cents per litre for petrol and 15 cents for diesel, pushing the rate from 3.85 to 4.01 per litre. Now, what this does basically is it will generate, if all goes well for National Treasury, it will generate another 23 billion over 3 years, a far cry from the 75 billion that would have come from the scrap VAT hike, but still a meaningful boost in the fiscal climate. Now, the EFF is arguing that this impact on the cost of transporting goods and services, which leads to increase in costs of food. Now, what they're saying is, and we know this is the reality, in a society where 18.2 million people are recipients of social grants, and nearly 45% of the population lives below the upper bound poverty line, the increase in the fuel levy will have an immediate and cascading effect on the cost of living. We know transport costs and other things will go up, and that will be passed to the consumer. Unlike income taxes, fuel levy is a consumption-based tax. It is not linked to income or wealth, and therefore applies uniformly across the income groups, regardless of ability to pay. So the impact is particularly severe in areas where household expenditure on transport and food exceeds 50% of income, a situation affecting the vast majority of social grant recipients and informal workers. Now, Hassan, we did a calculation on the amount of taxes one pays. The VAT, income tax, and as Imtiaz mentioned, municipal charges. There's another 10% admin fee for areas. So whatever earnings people have, whether they're high or low or medium income, they're paying more than 50% in some form of taxes. And basically the people's ability to spend is being compromised. Because when you go during the mid-month into a mall or the supermarket, you speak to the car guys and they tell you business is bad, man. So you ask them why, they say people don't have money to spend. So it's becoming the order of the day. So this government is now becoming a huge problem. And if they're not going to address, and the municipalities, the whole issue of proper administration of the fiscus, we're going to have a major problem going forward. Now, Hassan, from an economic perspective, we know we spoke about the inflation numbers. We spoke about the unemployment being around 35%. We spoke about lack of jobs. Affirmative action was being tackled, by President Trump, where certain communities, but these communities are not only getting jobs, but they're spending the day earning money on the side through, corrupt and maladministration. So how are we going to fix this up, Hassan? Sure. Do you think we're just on a hiding to nothing?
So first, I don't think the EFF's obviously blown this out of proportion. We look at that relative to what the VAT increase would have been. The VAT would have been a lot more substantial and very negatively impacting majority of your low to middle income households. That would have been a very, whether it was a 0.5% increase or they talked about the 1 and 1, whatever, 2% in total, but even half and half, That would be, so to put this in perspective, 16 cents a litre, you're paying currently 22 rand or around 22 rand a litre. 16 cents on 22 rand a litre is 0.7%, less than 1% impact on your total cost per litre. So the ability in terms of whether it's the taxi operators, the bus operators, whoever it is, to push through more than a 1% increase should not be there. If they're pushing through more than a 1% increase, they're taking advantage of the hype and the this thing, because there should be no reason. We've seen gradually over the last 6 months, fuel prices in general has come off. Oil prices, the oil price in terms of dollar terms has come back from $75 a barrel, is currently around $60 a barrel. We've seen the rand strengthening from 19 rand, is now currently at 18 rand. So we've actually had the benefit in terms of the fuel price having come off from about 24 rand odd. Now we're sitting at about 22 rand. So a 16 cents increase on that there is not likely to have and should not have a significant impact, be it on the transport costs or even food or any other related costs as well. So I think it's just being blown out of proportion. The bigger concern I have is that this is only going to raise about 4 billion rands. Government is effectively relying on SARS for the year ahead to fill their gap in terms of revenue. They're allocating 7 billion, it's about 7 billion or somewhere, maybe less. I'm going to just get the number to SARS, to get more resources and the like, to try and generate between 20 to 30 billion rands of revenue for the year ahead. Now, SARS has done pretty well since Edward Kieswetter has been there over the last few years. They've actually done pretty well in terms of, they're one of the most efficient and well-run state-run agencies, if you can call it that, over the last few years. And not that we're very happy, but nonetheless, they've done very well with that there. But taking that into account, they're relying on that. If SARS does not meet that target of getting 20 to 30 billion rands, that means the shortfall for the year ahead, when we're sitting back in February 2026, and government sees that they're facing a significant shortfall because SARS has not met some of the targets, then there's a possibility of other taxes coming in, and VAT could come back onto the table. And the biggest issue is, the concern is that potential for further tax increases, because the unfortunate thing is, as much as we can talk about it and we go on about it, that they should cut expenditure, there's no real willpower to address that. They've already set in place over the next 3 years above inflation increases for the public sector, and there's no expectations to cut the public sector workforce and the like. So you're not getting bang for buck there, and that remains the biggest expenditure item in the budget for the national budget, and unlikely to change in the foreseeable future. So my issue is that I don't think the fuel levy increase is a major impact in terms of the impact on the low to middle income households. They should not be, because it's a less than 1% increase on the fuel price. But the concern is for the coming year. If SARS does not generate the revenues of 20 to 30 billion additional target that they expected to, then we could face some challenges as well. I think one other point to note is this here. So the president, we saw him, he was last week in the US, and he's tried to, sort of calm things down with the US in terms of relations and trying to attract investment back into the country. And you spoke earlier with MP Imran Subrati around Starlink and the like. I think an important and what could help us going forward is that if we do see more investment and job opportunities coming through over the next 2 to 3 years, if you do see that, that means the top line or the revenue balloons up or drives up a lot more easily and significantly, which puts less pressure in terms of us in terms of the expenditure side, but also importantly in terms of our debt. The biggest risk to this country currently is our debt position. We're sitting at 75% debt to GDP. 22 cents of every rand being earned in the budget is being going towards debt servicing costs. That's our biggest challenge. And if you can generate more revenue in terms of more investment and what you call this creation from taxes that come through from investment and increasing employment, that will help to ease that going forward as well.
Hassan, I just want to go through a communication that came through Hasina Ismail. She's a DA spokesman on tourism. She mentions that the DA Democratic Alliance is deeply alarmed by the consistent pattern of delays, cost overruns, and government's failures reported in the Development Bank of South Africa update to the Portfolio Committee on Tourism. Despite 788 million spent and a project pipeline stretching across all 9 provinces, the evidence shows that South Africans are not getting value for money, which we were chatting about. Sure. Every single one of the 10 tourism infrastructure projects currently under construction is behind schedule. Sites like Royal Kalanga Lodge are nearly 2 years overdue, while the Freedom Dome project has had not one but 2 contractors terminated. To make matters worse, DBSA continues to recycle the same project managers. Penalties for delays appear ineffective and cost overruns are staggering. The Oaks Lodge project in Limpopo has reached 183% of its original budget with no clear accountability. The DA calls for a temporary halt on new DBSA-managed tourism infrastructure projects until existing issues are addressed, audits are complete, and feasibility plans are in place. Now, it is abundantly clear from this report that's coming through that there's no proper management. Those contractors that have been appointed are not really competent to do the work. And capital projects throughout the country are being compromised, like what is being reported here. I want to bring you in, Ish, just as a ratepayer of a large area, and Reservoir Hills is a huge property-based area, paying a lot of rates.
Correct.
And the ratepayers are coming to you and residents. And I know there's water outages, there's electricity outages, and various other outages. So what is the reaction of the people to the current state of affairs in the municipality, particularly, as Imtiaz pointed out, the budget is just a technical exercise, but there's no real improvement in service delivery.
No, and if you drive into Reservoir Hills, you as soon as you drive in, you will see we had the flood years ago. That infrastructure up till today has not been done.
The one in Varsity Drive at the bottom.
At the bottom, I mean, that place
so
is
if your car skids, you land into
you land inside the river.
Yes.
Right. And it hasn't been done. We had to push for the pavements to be done.
And there's too many potholes in those roads heading towards the informal settlement.
Oh, no. And you know what? We have outages. If I was driving through Analyst Drive today, right? And I seen 5 leaks on the road, right? And the amount of water loss.
And for a good couple of weeks, those leaks are there.
Those we'll report them. It'll take quite a while to get it sorted. But as I'm saying, it's the infrastructure is so bad. And why are there no emphasis on getting the infrastructure fixed?
So there's no plan of priority maintenance for problem areas. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, no, there's nothing. I mean, if you look at Reservoir itself, we have so many informal settlements. Not one of those informal settlements will be in there over 25, 30 years. There's not one of those informal settlements have got houses built. If you look at Banana City...
the mayor's plan about building houses is for them. The last 10 years, nothing happened.
And nothing's happened.
What do you expect to do in the next year?
And if you look, they had the project of Banana City for 20 years. At the present, if you go and take a drive and look, there's only platforms built and just terra blocks holding the sand. And it's a standstill. You cannot see work being done, really. It's like if the mayor says he's got this project and he's going to build so many houses for the informal settlements, really,
he's dreaming.
Actually, he's dreaming, because you're not going to get it done with the amount of money you think you're going to collect, and the amount of your billing system is in such a pathetic condition. Come on, you need to wake up. It's not going to happen.
Imtiaz, a lot of people that listen to the program, and there's a large number of people listening, and they catch me in the supermarkets and they catch me in the malls, and they're saying, what is the way forward? Because we had previous guests coming in and they're saying that the problem lies in the ballot box. Now, if you look at the minority communities, the best case scenario is if they vote for the minorities in the different areas with the 110 wards.
Correct.
And they get 20 seats. Even then, they're in the minority. We need to change the thinking of the majority parties. And there's a coalition between the ANC, IFP. MK is a runaway party from the ANC.
Yeah.
And the modus operandi is how we can enrich ourselves, particularly the businessmen, the contractors.
Yeah.
So there's a small minority of people that are benefiting from the huge fiscus of municipality and government.
Correct.
And we no doubt away in the Zondo Commission's report, nothing is being done. A lot is being said and nothing is being done. Is there any chance of an improvement in general service delivery, or are we on a hiding to nothing?
Yunus, let's just be clear about this, and without fitting in too many words, to understand what power really is, it's about having the status quo in your favor. So when you're sitting in a city and you don't have enough numbers to be over 50%, you go to someone who has the balance of your power, you negotiate with them, you give them some power in committee, or you give them what they want for their people.
To get something in return.
And then they stand with you. That's what is happening in the city. Now, the problem we have in the city is that, I'm going to take you back to 2011. There was a party called the Minority Front. It had 11 seats in this council. It had enough power to bring change for the people of Chatsworth and Phoenix. I ask you, we speak about 580 informal settlements today, okay? Whose wards are they in? Who has been the councillors for the past 10 years? Which party?
The minority communities.
So ask yourself, why are those people there? And why is there only a certain political party that has grown their numbers since 2011 to now 59 seats in this council, but still portrayed to act on your behalf? That's urbanization. The issue of shacks, let's not beat around the bush. Let's speak the truth about it. There are houses being built in Konubia. Those shacks are not going to go away because that's rental stock. Those shacks that are there are being rented out by people that own the shacks for new people that come into the city. When you come into the city, you go to a shack, you stay there for 800 a month. As soon as you find a nice little job,
rentals.
Correct. Once you find a nice little job, you and two of your buddies get a flat in a different area and you'll go live somewhere else. So therefore, the shacks are going nowhere. That's the truth. Whether it's something for you to you can't swallow it or you don't like what I'm saying, make me the villain about this.
It's an unwritten
Say that I'm a councillor and I'm doing nothing about it.
It's an unwritten strategy by the ruling party.
It is what it is. Not only by the ruling party. It's not by the ruling party.
By other parties as well.
What you need to understand is that is a voting block on its own within 23 informal settlements in Ward 27. 23.
So the councillor comes from that particular informal settlement?
No. It's a DA-run ward.
It's a DA-run ward. Correct.
Now, if you've got 23 informal settlements and you're telling me that those 23 informal settlements are ANC stalwarts, how did you get a DA councillor if they all voted for the ANC? It's not possible. I've just given you the numbers and I've told you that 500,000 households don't pay, meaning indigent, 580 informal settlements, and 472,000 households pay. Okay? So do the math. I'm not here to politicize anything, but figure out what's happening in your home, around you, in your ward, and figure out what's in your best interest to do. The reality of the political climate is not for you. The other thing I'll give you is that in 2021, we come in as councillors, right? You're supposed to stay there for 5 years, come up with ward development, speak to your community, start fixing things, and portray what the community wants in council. That does not happen. It does not happen. Because come 2024, which was last year's election, how many councillors relinquished their position, Amslanga Rocks here, there, to go to legislature and to go to national parliament? So where's the trajectory? Same thing happened here in the last election. Chris Papas was here. He then went to legislator. He leaves us with someone else for the balance of 2 years. So basically in certain wards, we've got councillors for 2 years and then the new councillor comes in and then there's a by-election. Ward 34, there's a by-election, now there's an independent. You cannot expect an independent to come into council for the first year or the latter part of his term, which is only 1 year, and to bring change. Not going to happen.
Imtiaz, for the benefit of our communities, many of them don't know how the budget works. They're just hearing about these figures, which Hassan is talking about. And in the end of the day, the allocation of those budgets is crucial. Now, if you got 110 wards, the allocation is not done equally.
No.
And Ish just spoke about the lack of priority, because you may have 20 of the 100 wards that require urgent work, and it could be in the minority areas. But the budget is emphasized towards the power that's a particular party is holding in a particular ward. So maybe for the benefit of our listeners, briefly, in a couple of minutes, from your understanding, I know how it works, and I don't want to say it. How does the CFO prioritize his budgets and the allocation thereof?
So very simply put, and when things are on paper, you can't see what you're exactly talking about, right? Remember, there are councillors and there are councillors. Some councillors are more influential than other councillors depending on party politics. That's what it is. Okay. Now remember, we're coming into an election, probably going to be, it's supposed to be next year, it's probably going to move to 2027 February. Based on that election and based how contentious this is going to be, there's going to be service delivery by particular parties in certain areas where their strongholds are, to maintain those strongholds. And that is what is going to happen. Now, when you're looking at a budget, these budget allocations, so if I'm saying 64.2 billion is going towards operational expenditure, remember, electricity unit will get a certain percentage of it. Water will get a certain percentage. All of them will get a certain percentage. Now, we went within committee. Remember, I sit in trading services. People need to understand the committees as well. So it's community services, all these committees. Trading services committee takes care of CSW, electricity, and water. The main three, 75% of all budgets come through that committee, right? They had to present to us what it is they're going to spend the capital expenditure on, and they needed to present to us what they're going to spend the operational expenditure from. Now, the OPEX expenditure of 64.2 billion, half of it goes to 24,000 employees. It's salaries, including mine.
Councillor salaries.
Your councillor is part of municipality.
So what does that constitute of the budget? What percentage?
So basically, something like 30% of that budget of 64.2.
So we got a bloated bureaucracy.
Correct. So it goes to salaries. Now, the question arises, and you know, there's something that we need to consider here. How is it that you see most municipality staff working on Sundays?
Because they get double paid.
Fixing street lights and doing all of that. But in the week, you hardly seeing them anyway. Now, these are the realities that are there. There's unions, there's all of these things that are eating at us, and we can't speak to it because
so 30% is going on a bloated bureaucracy.
Yes.
And then the balance of 30%.
And Hassan spoke about political will. Political power is required to bring that change. You don't have to be a majority. You just have to make up the balance of the equation. If you need 100 bricks to build a house and you only have 95, the cost of that 5 bricks can be as expensive as the 95. And that's where change comes in. Minorities can make a difference if they stand together and they understand the dynamic of politics and how to bring change within councils.
I want to bring you in, Ish. We're running out of time also. Your community demands service delivery. In a sort of ranking from 1 to 10, maybe you might say it's 3 out of 10, maybe less. Imtiaz has just mentioned that the minority seats that are being held, use it effectively and go and bargain for improvement in service delivery in those areas, which responds to the community needs over and above other things.
Correct.
So what is your community demanding from the meetings you're having? Because many of them want to know, will our roads be fixed? Will they deal with our water leaks? Will they deal with the sewer leaks? Because sewer leaks take a week or 2 or even months to clear, and it's a health hazard as well.
Correct.
So what is your community's demand, and how do we expect to improve service delivery?
Well, if you look at our people's demands, the most important thing is water is a human right, and they're not getting it. I mean, if you look at the outlining at Chatsworth, at the moment, I've just got messages on, they got no water. They're getting water in the morning for an hour, water in the evening. So where is all this thing coming about? You're going to have a fantastic service delivery. I can't see it coming because all our areas are suffering. The roads are so bad, potholes. It's bad. We had a big water leak in Morale Road. It happened 2-3 days ago. That hole is gaping. It's big. Messages been sent on the chat. Nothing's been done. when you see a car go into it, and then something will be done. Really, it's and the important and the very way the municipality works is, when you do a water leak, you're supposed to fill that hole, get the hole sorted out, and tarred at the same time. They will have 3 or 4 contractors doing it over the past couple of weeks. You will get the tar. They will put in the actual shale or whatever they call it on the top, and it'll go into a hole again. They'll come after 3 months and put the tar in. That's not on. Service delivery is not on. It's not helping the people at all.
So people are giving up the struggle.
Yeah, people are giving up. I mean, look at the
Even
increase.
service delivery is as bad as Man U performing in the Premier League.
Correct. Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Because the people are fed up now. They tend to like say, we give up now. We can't do anything more. That's it. We had it now.
I want to bring you in, Hassan. When we speak to the Man U supporters, this is a digression. They tell us, listen, even if Man U get relegated to third division, we're still going to support them, notwithstanding their poor performance, because they're hopeful. Our communities are now losing hope, but they're forced to sit there and see what they can do. Sure. What's your closing comments, Hassan?
I think the unfortunate, while inflation has come off, I think the unfortunate thing is rates and taxes are going to increase by double digits. It's not only impacting us in eThekwini, it's impacting us in many of the municipalities across the country. Joburg is a disaster. I mean, you just look at what's happening in Joburg. They're trying to do so many various different things. They're trying to impact them. They're talking about CCTV cameras. They want to regulate CCTV cameras and charge those that have CCTV cameras and the like. So because many of the municipalities are in financial distress, they are looking for opportunities to increase the revenues rather than cutting back on wasteful expenditure. And that's the unfortunate thing. What we need to do is ensure that continue to voice our displeasure, whether it's via emails to the various, whether it's the municipalities or whoever it is, you continue to report and voice your displeasure, whether it's at poor service levels, unfair rates increases, and the like. Continue to do that. Secondly, support the various ratepayer associations. They are doing a very good work there in trying to address some of the issues that we have. And we have seen in the last 2 years in particular, many of the ratepayer associations have made a difference in terms of trying to hold accountable, be it councillors and also the municipality, in terms of trying to address some of the, whether it's water leakages or electricity outages and the like. They're pushing the councillors and putting them under pressure, and at the same time also trying to put the municipality under pressure in terms of trying to get the job done. Continue to do that. Pay this. I mean, the Musgrave ratepayers, it's 300 odd rands a year, but the value that you're getting for it is phenomenal, considering what you're paying for your rates and taxes, and you're not very happy with the value you're getting there. You're getting a lot better value in terms of the ratepayers and the services that they're providing. Pay for that there. Thirdly, elections next year. Keep this in the back of your mind. Make sure that you do vote, because every single small vote counts, especially where in many of the municipalities, there's definitely going to be small margins, the small numbers that can determine who comes in and who comes out. But vote also, remember who worked for you and who didn't work for you, and take that into account when you're voting next year. But firstly, make sure you vote, and then voting for the councillors or those people that you believe will will work on your behalf.
Thank you. Some very important comments. I just want to go through an article published by the eThekwini municipality as part of the resolutions taken during the ward-based Operation Suku Masake OSS war rooms. Ward 6 Councillor Bless Motala said various service delivery initiatives in the precinct have commenced. These include road infrastructure, the building of retaining walls, as well as housing projects and sports development programs. Councillor Motala thanked the community for their patience and support as programs were finalized. He said their plans to table budget for new programs for the upcoming financial year as part of continued service delivery in communities. So what this is telling us is that councillors play a crucial role, ratepayer associations play a crucial role. in monitoring performance by the municipalities and improving service delivery. And as Imtiaz mentioned, that is the start of a revolution to take place. I know there's a lot of ratepayer associations blossoming and becoming proactive, like ARPM, your organization, ERRA, ACC, etc. Imtiaz, your closing comments, 2 minutes.
Yes, I think it's important for us to understand that there is service delivery in the city. The money is being spent. Where it's being spent is not for your eyes, and it's not for you. That's what's happening at the moment, okay? At the end of the day, it comes down to a very, very simple thing. When we're looking at the city is based on power and who runs it. If you can have a say in who runs it, then you have enough power to bring change to where your constituency is. And like Hassan rightfully mentioned, everybody needs to vote. You must vote. If you don't vote, don't speak, don't complain, don't argue about budgets, don't do all of those things. And like I'm telling you, tomorrow we're going into a budget. Really, it's the first time I feel I'm going into a meeting where I really don't have any sway or say. Because political parties nationally have decided whether this budget is going through or not. The IFP caucus, the EFF caucus, all of them, they've already got the instructions as to how they must approach this budget tomorrow. So realistically speaking, I'm going to a meeting to speak for the minutes that I have, to voice my opinions on the issues that I see within the budget, but it's not going to sway any other party into the direction of saying, please remove this, then we'll approve the budget. Power speaks to that. So if you had enough power to sway that budget and speak to the ruling party to say, if you take this out, I'll support you in the budget, then you have something. Right now, the minorities that sit there are divided. They have their own agendas. Political parties sitting in the opposition benches believe that they're too powerful to talk to minorities, so they don't caucus you. And that's really what's happening. There's a political game being played at your expense. And that's really all I have to say.
Ish, your closing comments. How do you mobilize ratepayer associations to start getting more organized?
On this Saturday with all our ratepayers up in Osterwald in Wentworth. It's going to be quite a nice meeting with the majority of the ratepayer associations have said they're coming to. So we are going to put all our claims and etc. on the table, and from there we want to make sure that we get the municipality to do what we are paying for. And if they cannot do what we are paying for, then there will be an uproar. So we are not saying if they pass the budget, that's fine, but we want our money spent wisely, and we do not want any more corruption, and we want everything that's being spent on tenders must be shown to the ratepayers associations in their areas. If whichever ward you're in, the ratepayers association must be involved in those tender processes, and they must know where their money is going to. That's all we are saying. We need our services. That's all.
Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of News in Focus for tonight. We've heard some very important comments being made by ratepayer organizations, by Councillor Imtiaz, by our Economist, how to get bang for your buck. And at the end of the day, I think we as residents have to make sure you monitor the performance of officials and councillors in the municipality and in government organizations to demand value for money for what you pay. And in that regard, we have to continue working closely with civic activists, ratepayer associations, councillors, even the war rooms that are taking place, to ensure that that particular ward attains appropriate service delivery. And many ratepayer organizations are beginning to see the results. And obviously, if the council is being held accountable, they're going to look back and say, where are we spending this money? We have to account for the money being spent. And I'm suggesting to ratepayer associations demand access to budget spend on a monthly basis by working closely with your councillor and members of parliament in those constituencies, so that once officials and councillors are held to account, then they will be wary about corruption and maladministration that's taking place. We know that from an Islamic perspective, we in this Mubarak month of Zilhajj, that has dawned upon us this evening, our ulama ikram have indicated that this is one of the most auspicious months in the Islamic calendar, and the first 10 days are the great nights of ibadat, and we should not waste these nights. In fact, many ulama have said that the nights of Zilhajj in the first 10 days is equivalent or if not more auspicious than the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan. So in whichever way we can increase our ibadat, make our du'as, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world, including Palestine, where there's serious atrocities, genocide taking place. And if we look at the resilience of our brothers and sisters in Palestine, they always say, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil, that we still believe that Allah knows best why this is happening. I mean, we're reading reports coming through that a particular household have lost 9 children out of 10. And how do they feel? But they're accepting it that this is a decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to assist us in South Africa to ensure that we care for the poor in the informal settlements, we care for those around us, but at the same time, the government must be held accountable and they're holding a position of trust and they must do away with maladministration and corruption. We must continue with those du'as for the ummah around us because charity begins at home. We have to care for those around us, and this is what Islam demands. So we should make the maximum of these 10 days of Zilhajj, makes lots of du'as for the ummah, for the communities out there, and in that way we will change our conditions. So that brings us to the closure of News in Focus for tonight. I thank our guests for joining me. Some very, very important comments that came through. We appreciate it. Imtiaz, we wish you everything of the best. We know you're going into a Qurbani program in Malawi. Everything of the best. Ish, continue with the good work. I think you guys are doing a lot of good work. You're not even being paid. And you all are the unsung heroes. Hassan, thanks very much for the support and the financial information that you share with us. Thanks very much to Mondley, our technician here. Always very good, making sure the right nasheeds are being played and all the good work that is taking place. On that note, I wish you everything of the best for this Mubarak month of Muharram. The Al Ansar Foundation and Media Network will be having regular programs crossing over to our various correspondents in Saudi Arabia to give us updates on happenings out there for the Mubarak month of Zilhajj. Until next Wednesday, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
जहाँ जहाँ भी गया दिल छाने लगे